This is a sail drive leg. And this piece of rubber here, that is a sail drive diaphragm. And the job of that little piece of rubber is to keep the entirety of the world's ocean out of the inside of your boat. So it is super important to keep on top of the maintenance of that diaphragm, because if something goes wrong with that, you'd be in a bit of a pickle. And it's recommended by Volvo that you actually change that sail drive diaphragm once every 7 years. And after finding the date on the side of the diaphragm, last time it was changed was 2008. So yeah, it's time. So, given how important this particular job is, I decided to get a quote. In fact, I got a couple of quotes, and they ranged from £2,000, pounds, right up to £2,500. Now, given the kind of inquisitive nature that I have, I decided to sort of press the guy a little bit, like, are we talking about the same thing? Little rubber disc, about the size of a frisbee, and he's like, yeah, the sail drive diaphragm, yeah, £2,500. He's like, yeah, there's quite a lot involved, you know. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. Maybe I just didn't realise. And he's like, yeah, no, like, you know, it takes a day, sometimes 2 days to do the job. You know, one guy can do it, but you know, sometimes depending on the size of the engine, you might need 2 guys there to do it. And I'm like, okay. But for some reason, it still felt like a huge amount of money for a little flappy piece of rubber. So I was like, well, if I wanted to maybe have a crack at this myself and buy this sort of sail drive diaphragm, what am I looking at? He says to me, the entire pack is £240. £240. Like, £240. It's like, yeah, I went, so there's like 2,250 quid's worth of sort of slippage here and there. And he's like, thinking to myself, on a good day, one guy could do this job on their own. There's 2,250 quid in it for him. Potentially. It was at that point I started to think, I'm probably in the wrong line of work. So if by chance you don't see many more Cadora Adventures videos from us, just know that I'm busy working away retraining as a mechanic. Safe to say that I didn't just have £2,500 willy-nilly to give to somebody for a day's work, as much as I would love to. And I thought, oh, do you know what, I'm going to have a crack at this myself. So I ordered the sail drive diaphragm kit, which means let's get started on the engine. I'm going to take this pin out, I'm going to take this nut off and this nut off, and then hopefully this whole thing will come off in one section. That'll be easy to put back on again as well. Fixings off. In order to drag the engine forward a couple of inches, we're going to need to unscrew these brackets holding the engine to the hull. So as it's a sail drive, we only have 2 brackets here, and then obviously we need to disconnect a few bits and pieces here. So let's get these out. And so the next thing I'm going to do is take these fixings off. So we've got 3 this side and 3 the other side, and again, being careful not to lose these insulating bits of plastic. Alright, that's worth paying attention to. That fixing there is longer, and that's the one that goes on the bottom for my sail drive anyway, so some video evidence there. Next thing, I'm going to try and just take this little bit out here and take this off, so that again, as I try and work this through this tiny little gap in the engine bay here, that's all I've got. The less surface area and the less bits I've got hanging off the edge, hopefully the easier that'll be to get through. So that's my logic. Okay, I think that's everything. I'm gonna try now and just pull the engine couple of inches this way, and hopefully that will give us enough room. So. Okay, so from wiggling the engine side to side, I've managed to create, yeah, there's a good couple of inches there. Again, we've had a couple of inches of movement, so hopefully that'll be enough. Okay, so this massive pain in the backside was Sikaflex down, and there's almost no room to get there. So I have saved you a somewhat painstaking 3.5 hours getting a chiseling and just trying to break the seal on the Sikaflex, but you'll be pleased to know we've made progress. There you go. That is now finally loose. Let's take that off. Yes. Woo! Oh, wow. This video is not truly going to capture just how fiddly that was. Okay, now allegedly that is the hard part of the job done. We've got some fixings to try and get out, which obviously have been there for years, so this one might be interesting. And then we need to separate the base of the sail drive from the gearbox itself, where there'll be some gaskets and bits and pieces, hopefully all still in one piece, so we can see exactly what needs to go back and how, but let's get this off. That wind is really howling outside today. So it's recommended to change the sail drive diaphragm once every 7 years, and we actually spotted whilst taking this apart that the last time this was changed was actually 2008. So this hasn't been removed for 15 years, which is mental. But it hasn't seemed to have lost any of its suppleness, considering that's 15 years old. And I can't see any tears or cracks or anything in it really. Like it's a bit of dirt and some grime that's built up, but this is literally just fallen off of here. This is just fallen off the metalwork. Look, that comes straight out, and then you can see it looks in pretty good nick. So I'm not telling anyone not to change theirs every 7 years. Your insurance company probably have something to say about it if you don't, but if it's been like 7 years and a couple of weeks, I probably wouldn't like panic either, because that's 15 years old and that looks pretty good. Different levels. This isn't all smooth. That probably explains why the previous sail drive diaphragm was held in with Sikaflex. So what we're going to do is fill in all these holes, sand everything, remove the fixings, clean everything up, and then we're going to put some thickened epoxy down, and then we're going to put the fixings back in with some wax or some Vaseline, something like that. And then we're going to put the gator clamp over the top of that, and that's going to create a flat, hopefully perfect ring surface. Remove that just as the thickened epoxy is starting to go off, then hopefully that'll give us a really good surface then to get a nice perfect seal ready to go back in the water. In order to plug those holes where the sail drive is going to sit, I'm going to take some fixings and we're just going to shave the top off. Then hopefully we can just wind those in, maybe coat them with some Vaseline or some wax or something that the epoxy isn't going to stick to, and then we can place the gator clamp over the top of that, and then we can push down and hopefully create a nice even surface. So let's get on that. Alright, now I had a little bit of a change of plan. So after spreading out the thickened epoxy and wanting to create that level surface, I actually took a piece of wood, just an old piece of plywood, and cut that out exactly the shape that we needed, and then made all these holes here so that we could sit that down over the fixings that we've screwed in. Now on the other side of the wood I actually covered it in this tape, and then covered the tape in a wax so that the epoxy wouldn't adhere to this, so that we could leave it overnight and then hopefully pop it off, and that would give us a smooth surface. And that's the plan. Alright, next we're going to clean up the underside, and once this is all put back together, this is where the rubber that sits on the outside of the hull is going to go. So we want a nice clean surface to attach that to. So it's time for, as Mads would say, time for some glorious sanding. Anyway, this has a little bit of surface rust. I don't know if you can sort of just see it there. And so what I'm going to do is got some sort of like Sikaflex or something on the bottom. So I'm going to clean this all up, and then I think we're going to take it somewhere, get it sandblasted, repainted, and then that should hopefully all be ready to go. The corrosion that it has is really, really surface level, and there's not really a great deal of it. That's about the worst of it. Can you see that? So that should clean up nicely. Okay, I have saved you 4 days worth of building it up, sanding it down, building it up and sanding it down, but we are now looking at something that resembles a level, flat surface. Alright, we have our metal clamp back from the sprayer, and that has come up, I don't know if you can see that there, that has come up really, really nice. It was just a very, very small amount of surface rust on there, and that's come off, and that looks as good as new. That's all been epoxy primed and then epoxy painted, so in the environment that's going to be working in, that should be good for a long time to come. Now, the next thing we want to do is clean all of this surface up. It's a little bit rough around the edges, and we want to have that nice and smooth. So all I'm going to do, my two weapons of choice are a brand new razor blade and some 180 grit paper on a very small block. I'm just going to use this to scrape off any big bits of debris, and then just very, very gently hopefully smooth that off and make that surface nice and flush. So next up, I'm going to take the actual sail drive leg itself, just bunging up the holes so we don't get too much dust and grit and bits in there. And then on the surface here, again, you see, I'm just going to fill in and stuff these holes, and then I'm just going to do the same again with the sandpaper and the razor on the surface here again, just to get a nice smooth finish and hopefully a good connection when we put these back together again. Alright, that's the surface area all cleaned up. Now, before I get too carried away, these gasket kits did come with a set of instructions. In fact, they came with multiple sets of instructions, because it seems to be... This is from Volvo. So this gasket kit was a couple of £100, and there are multiple gasket kits in here. So there's multiple sets of instructions. So I'm going to figure out which one is which and go from there. got a bunch of O-rings here. I think I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on them just to help seal them and hold them in place. It doesn't say anything in the book, so if I've done that wrong, jump in the comments and let me know. Although it'll be too late by then. But let me know anyway, so somebody else who's trying to do this might be able to learn from my mistake, but I'm going to grease them up just a little bit. We've got these little tiny ones here, which just sit in these 3 little inserts here. There you go, that keeps them all in place. So now the sail drive leg is all in place. All that remains is to put the rubber foot on the outside. So this is the new rubber, and we're going to adhere it to the bottom of the boat with this stuff. Can you see that? Hyperbond 2. There we go. Now, according to the instructions, all we need to do is prepare the surface with a little light sanding, then mix up a little bit of the Hyperbond 2, brush it over the top, allow it to go tacky, mix up a second batch, brush that over the top and on the surface, allow them both to go tacky, takes about 10 to 20 minutes, and then adhere them together. And hopefully, that'll be the sail drive leg all done. Especially around the edges, where going to feel the most resistance in the water and be most likely to start coming away. Alright, time to mix up the Hyperbond rubber adhesive, and it's a 2-part sealant, and all you need to do is mix these in equal measures, as in half a tub of this would be half a tub of this. Tell you what, this has got a really interesting consistency. Can you see that? It's almost kind of like that kids slime we used to play with in the 90s, if any of you remember that. Anyway, I'm just going to apply a thin layer of the Hyperbond to both of the surfaces that are going to be connected. I'm going to leave it for about 15 to 20 minutes to allow that to tack off, and then we're going to repeat the process again, and then hopefully we'll have 2 really tacky surfaces to push together. Okay, so I've gone over this twice now and I've allowed it to tack up twice, and so the moment of truth, we're going to apply some pressure with this little roller, hopefully get this all on nice and smoothly. And there we have one shiny, brand new sail drive diaphragm. Gator clamp has all been epoxy repainted. giving the engine bay a bit of a spruce up. All of these have been torque wrenched. I think these are 20 Newton meters. The sides here, I think these are 40. These are 40. They're all in the instructions. But yeah, it's really important to make sure you get those all torqued up correctly. And that is the first big job ticked off of the list. But I don't know if it's a big job, but it's a damned expensive job for what it is. And it feels really good to have the first one done, because it feels like we've had a bit of a slow start here. There's just lots of bits and pieces started, but that's the first one that is finished. Although the sail drive diaphragm is all back together, there's still some work on the gearing to go back in. I spotted a tiny little bit of kind of like milky looking oil at the very, very, very front after we took the propeller off. So that means that the oil seals are starting to fail. So we're going to change those, put the gearing back together, get that all clean. But I think that'll be another video altogether. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed us getting that done. And again, if you want to know how to do that job properly and correctly and meticulously, then I actually recommend this video here. It's a channel called Sailing Britley, and this guy really knows his stuff when it comes to mechanics. As always, my videos are not educational. They're just a regular guy, not a mechanic, not trained. And if I can do it, mostly through following people like this, then chances are you can probably do it too. That's it for today. Bye for now.